Welcome back to the last 100 yards, and we are ready to play Mission 1. Mission 1, despite the map showing green and the camouflage of the troops showing up a very summerish gray uniform and green for the troops, is actually December 44. Around the combats around Aachen area. Actually, this is Elsenborn Ridge during the Bulge, in the Belgian villages of Rocherath and Krinkelt. And between the 99th Infantry Division, part of Company K, of the 393rd Infantry Regiment, and they are being engaged in their sector by some part of some company of the 277th Volksgrenadier Division. Probably somewhere might go and deep dip into this action specific. So actually there's a book called The Last 100 Yards, and if you want to search for it, might give you some good insights on missions from several different conflicts where this very distinguished kind of approach to a tactical system, the very last push, draws the majority of its or a lot of its inspiration, I am very sure. Don't quote me on that, but if you read the book, you know what I mean. Right, the mission objective is if at the end of the turn the German player controls 5 wooden buildings, and that means all wooden buildings and the church, right? Small village. Okay. That's the objective of the Germans is to control 5 of the buildings, including outskirt villages. I just put the control here so I know the Americans can deploy from this lineup, but that control on the church is essential. And or if the casualty limit goes over the value, it's not equal, it has to go over. The Germans are attackers on this scenario, so it must go over. So basically the casualty track will go back and forth as casualties mount. Or if one of the sides exceeds, or the final score is equal to 46, which pretty much is an American victory. Okay. The Germans are attackers. They have an initiative of +2. Yep. Exactly, they have a +2 in every initiative rule. I think it's in another scenario. What else? Oh, yeah, this is important. The half hedges north is that way, so south, east, west, and the half hexes on the east and west edges are not counted for the game, just the north and south ones. And German units enter unconcealed. You can deploy Eden if you are, but I mean, given this is a demonstration game, yeah. So we have everything set up. So timer is all at zeros there. So 0 minutes, 0 tens, and 0 hours. Initiative for Germans. So let's go for the deployment. Well, I was thinking of doing something, but now let's do it differently and do it normally like we would in yeah, because there's no way I could mark in some paper where I would want my forces, and as the Germans advance, and they would be put on the map, but let's not do that. Okay, the Germans are off map, okay, and they can organize themselves. Lang can they can pretty much already, and they're split in elements. The MG will enter eventually, but usually the MG is activated along with the platoon that is closest. And I would say the Americans deploy first. And I would say, and as you can see actually from the Germans, the more good all-rounder is Lang's platoon, but Rolf has the highest and lowest. So 7, it's pretty good, but then he has also some less tested men on his platoon. Jackson has it pretty much good all round. Has some green guys, but so what Jackson will do is we're going to deploy the MG, and is actually going to split the second squad into 2 elements. I'm gonna deploy them concealed, but we'll see where we'll put them. Okay, I want the MG covering this area and that area, so good central. The big problem here is this approach. It's very fast for an assault. I will want maybe Jackson in the middle of the village. Take the controls out. I can only deploy north of row 11, so I could deploy any Americans where the stars are, but I think I won't. No, I will put one of the squads, actually squad 1 with the MG. I will leave squad 4 with Jackson as a reserve there. And now I'm going to do, I was going to do a stupid thing. I'll leave one of the elements with the MG, one of the elements giving an early warning here, and first squad there. Worst situation, we fall back through the town and then trace a defensive line on this L. Focus fire into the open here, and yeah, hug the wall and hug the tree line and fire them. Remember what I said, this depends which squad gets there first and also breaks line of sight. Right, they are, let's put them concealed. I mean, the Germans know there's American forces in that village. They just don't know exactly where they are. That's what concealed means. Now the Germans will enter. They entered. They start outside the map. So I'll try. Glang will go with the first squad and the second, the third, and we want to get, because remember we have to control, with our grenadiers we have to control wooden houses and church. So we want to advance as fast as possible. Let's take the controls out so we can view the map. So these two are pretty much granted. Problem is we still have 3 to get on the village. So I will want Lang to capture the one here. Okay, the machine gun probably have to think which one. Oh, by the way, the squad, the elements should be shuffled from a cup when you need them. What I usually do is I shuffle them and put them in the stack and take them out in order prior to the game, just not to have them shuffled. At the moment, I don't need any. I don't want to split any of the squads. So now Rolf will start with the best squad, and he will enter and try to go this avenue. I know it's a split. Eventually this will become a focus area, but then probably we'll also, okay, and we will see the MG who enters with what. Okay, now movement for the non-vehicle combat units is 3 movement points. Okay, so basically non-combat vehicle units, the road doesn't really mean anything. They are on foot, so walking kind of on this grassland or even across plowed field, it's pretty much similar to walking on a dirt road or even tarmac. It's the same deal. You have to move your legs, okay? For vehicles it's different, but foot sloggers have 3 movement points. Now the forests and the woods and the forests, it's 1.5 and so on and so forth. If you climb a hill, you add 1. But the active, because there's an active and reactive sides for each time interval, can move 3 movement points or 2 X's. Okay, we're going to see that in detail now. So let's start the first movement of the Germans. All right, so they start outside and they can move 3 movement points or 2 X's, no matter the cost. So Lang immediately will enter. So 1, 2, 3. They enter like the mission, as per the mission description. They are not concealed. Actually, Lang's gonna enter here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have 1 building already. And 1, 2, 3. Okay, we moved. Usually you can move them to the side to know that they moved. Okay, we moved the second platoon. I could have, the German player could have rolled the die to see if he could do a coordinated activation, which would mean if you would pass the coordinated roll, you could activate actually 2 platoons in the same activation phase, but decided not. Just move the second platoon, and now the American player can react to the units that did something. Now, this unit did actually see this one, is in the open and at least 8 axes away. Well, eventually this one will, when we reach that phase, will be concealed. This one will be not. Okay, so the Americans don't want to react and pass to the German player if he wants to react to any reaction that the American player did. Well, given the Americans didn't react to anything that the German player did, German player well, can't really react with the units that activated because they moved. So we have maneuvers, recovers, and fire actions. So okay, so we are done for now, and we pass to the next activated platoon, which will be Rolf. So 1, 2, 3. Remember that the half axes on the south and north count. Now, for example, here, this would cost 1.5, and plus 1, 2.5, plus 1 would be 3.5. We can't possibly get there, but we can always move 2 axes. So even if we would have forest and climbing a hill with 1.5 and then 2.5 because we are climbing, we could do it. And we're going to take our MG actually with Rolf. Can move 3 as well, so 1, 2, 3. So we take some of our counters just to remind ourselves that these units actually maneuvered. Okay, the Americans can react to the German player actions, so they always react to an action that they actually saw happening. In this case, if we trace, I don't think it would see this one nor that one, because line of sight would be broken by this and by this. They can also do limited reactions, and for that, as you saw in the previous video, it relies heavily on the leader of the platoon. So the leader of the platoon could now make a limited reaction with his own stack and any other stacks that are around him that are in the open. In this case, these units are inside cover, so they would not be eligible unless they would be in a really bad spot, disrupted and all that. So technically, this turn is done. There's nothing else to do. Even if the American player did his reactions, passes to the German. If he wants to react to anything that the American player did during his reaction phase, and then he could pass the reaction back and forth until no one is doing anything anymore. We would pass to the shooting phase, assault phases and all that, and the turn would end. Okay, not the turn really, but time has passed, and for that we would roll a die, and we rolled a 4. A 4 means that 3 minutes have passed. So basically what we did here, all this movement took 3 minutes. So it's maybe you enact how troops move across open terrain, or maybe this Lang and these troops, these ones, made a small advance, making sure it was covered. Then Lang made a sprint. These ones as well, same deal. But before, we actually did one thing wrong. We shouldn't have rolled for the time. We have to conceal the units that are not in line of sight. So now happens that Rolf, the rest of his squad, or the rest of this platoon, and Lang and his squads there are now concealed. I mean, this American knows that they can clearly see, or kind of see, movement there. So they know they are exactly there. They saw someone entering those farmhouses. They know they are there. They just don't know exactly where, if they are along the wall, the edge, or in the windows, whatever. But they know they are there. So now it would be the initiative phase. And the initiative phase, we know that the Germans have a +2 initiative. In this case, the Americans rolled a 2, the Germans rolled an 8. So the Germans still retain the initiative. Now the Germans going to try to make coordinated activation, so they can activate platoon number 2 and platoon number 3. And they rolled a 6, which means they failed. They needed at least an 8. Now, German player must decide if he activates second platoon or third platoon. In this case, the MG is closest to the third platoon, so it will activate with the third. And now comes a decision, because these woods are excellent approach, so the German forces can start an assault into the village itself. But also there's a good option of going through the western corridor and then assault into the church from the flank. It all depends on what happens here. And the time is on the American side, because they score points for the more time the Germans take to achieve their objectives. So German player will activate platoon number 2. So we will first, okay, we have a 6, 1. Okay, he will approach there with the full squad. You will also move that one. I'm going to put counters so we don't lose ourselves in there. So we had a move. We had a maneuver as well, so 1, 2.5. And now Lang will also move with the other. Remember that Lang is concealed. Actually, is not. And why? Because he maneuvered into a cover position within 3 of an enemy and line of sight. So this unit can see to this X. There's no interruption in the middle. So 3 X's, and he maneuvered into that X. He loses the concealment. Same with this unit, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. This one didn't have concealment, so pretty much carries on without it. Now, okay, German player activated platoon number 2, and now comes the American reaction, which will come in the form of having this unit fire into this unit here, and that entire, all those units there will open fire into this one. Okay, that's a reaction. Now the German player can react to the American reactions. He already maneuvered all this. He could react with these ones if they even saw anything. But given he still has to activate them, it doesn't really need to make a limited reaction by using Rolf. Yeah. So he passes the chance of reaction back to the Americans, which will not react to anything anymore. He wants to keep at least some units with open options for future reactions. You can't come back to reactions against units that you already reacted against, okay? So that's important. You have to keep your priorities at the moment where you want them. Remember, it's all about time and what happens in those minutes. So basically, in this piece of time, second platoon moved and those units fired. There's no, oh, but I forgot to fire that. There's none of that. Okay, so let's make the math. Okay, we have an element here. He has a firepower of 0, but which we grab, okay. So we are firing at this unit. We have a 0. Simple. But we have the combat factor there. Of 8. Okay. So 8 says that at a range 3 we have a -1. So from a 0 turns into a -1. Also, all the modifiers do not apply. So our small arms fire against that unit will be -1. We are concealed and in cover terrain, so we can fire and not lose our concealment unless we would be firing at 2 hexes away. Same with this one. It doesn't lose the concealment. It would have to be firing at 2 hexes away. We are firing at 3. So what happens is now these 2 units will be doing the same. This element, it's a 0. So let's make our math. But we are firing at 3, and with our small arms fire value of 8 means we go to a -1 due to the range, you know, if the weapons are more or less accurate at range, etc, etc. Okay, that's a -1, but this unit is in a forest, and our forest terrain modifier for small arms fire and mortar fire tells us is a +(-1). So suddenly we are firing at -2. The 30 caliber machine gun starts with a 1. Okay. Has a small arms factor of 10, which from 1 to 3 axes away it has no modification, so we are still with a 1. Given they are inside a forest with a -1, our fire becomes a 0. Okay. Pretty much straightforward. There will always be a dance around the -2s and 1-2s. You can never go lower than -4. Anything -4, it's just yeah, just ignore it, because it's like the shots had automatically had no effect. All right, next activation of the Germans. He will activate one of Rolf's squads here. So we can move 1, 2, 3. It's risky, but we lose the concealment with them. And we need the MG to set up somewhere. So we go 1, 2, 3 there. Actually, we're going to move everything forward, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Right, we maneuvered. There wasn't much we could do. 1, 2, 3, we were behind the house. Even if I left the MG there, I couldn't cover anyone. I could leave the MG here to give us some cover fire, but I'd rather risk the move there and from there have the MG covering our approach and then focus an assault with 3rd platoon on those houses there. Just so we know, we took control of this house there. We lose the concealment. We are in the open there, and same with this unit, because they are within 3. Now the remaining squads will make a run for it as well. We lose the concealment. Okay, let's mark that they maneuvered. All right. I don't know if we need to mark 2 houses in the back, but I'll just leave the control for now so we have an idea that is happening. Okay, the Germans have had an action. The Americans can react. Remember, they didn't react with this one nor this one. And now they can only react to the ones that activated. Yeah, this unit has line of sight to that one. You trace from center to center. Even if you pass on the side, it's not blocked unless you have blocking terrain on both sides. So I'm thinking if we focus fire on that one or that one. So what I'm gonna do is actually gonna fire with that squad into there. We might get lucky, and then have Jackson. We could make a limited reaction and actually maneuver. I'm a bit fearful. Okay, let's just open fire into this here. Okay, let's, same as before. We have a 1. Okay, it's just to make the math easy. Okay, we have a 1. Okay, he has 8. And the 8 means he has no modification at the range of 1 and 2. So he's at 2 range. And now there's a further modifier because it's proximity fire. The enemy maneuvered into a range of 2 axes away. So we add 1. There, the leader doesn't add anything. So we have a factor of 1 at the range of 5, which with an 8 small arms factor means -3 for a net of -2, and they are in the open. So it's only a -2. Only. It's not bad. Alright. Now, the Germans could react to the units that reacted, but there's no one else to react to. So now we advance to the small arms fire resolution. Alright. First that one. So we are rolling. Let's take the counters out so we know that we already over the activation and reaction phases. Oop. Okay. Easier that way. The firing and modified, it's a D10 against the unit cohesion. They are in the fire. Let's see how they prevail. So we rolled a 4. -1, it's a 3. It's under the cohesion. Everything is fine. They braved the fire. This 2, and I'm glad I could put 2 dice on a unit. Okay, you roll 1 die per each of those, but you have to roll accordingly. You don't roll 2 and then pair them up. I consider it a bit of non-correct way of doing it, and you'll see why. Okay, let's roll for the -2. We roll the 6, and for the 0 we roll the 2. Doesn't matter how many die you roll, you can only choose the best combo you get. So 6 - 2, it's a 4 net, and this one it's a 2. So in this case, that would be the result. You could be launching 10 dice. Doesn't matter. Only one, the best result. That's why I roll individual die for each one of the counters. I could roll 10 and then myself choose the pairing, but that's so gamey. So 6 - 2, it's a 4. It did not do enough to disrupt that unit. Let's go for this one. We have an 8 -2. Right, we always go for the strongest unit for the highest unit in the block. So I8 -2, it's a 6, does nothing. Now Rolf, it's a +2, it's different. It's rolled here, and we rolled the 1. +2, it's a 3, doesn't affect anything. Okay. If previous video I hinted to that, if Rolf had a higher cohesion level than the highest unit in the hex, you could modify this one to could modify the die to -1, but given the highest unit it's a 7 and he is a 6, it doesn't change anything. So with the small arms fire complete, we would go to the assaults if there was assaults. Sorry. And now we could check the concealed units again, and these remain concealed, these remain concealed, this one not, and none of the Germans gained concealed again. So we roll for the time that has passed again. And we rolled an 8, which means that 4 minutes passed. So since the very start of the game, 7 minutes have passed. So the Germans are actually pushing very nicely, and if you see, they advance roughly 200 yards, something like that. Some shots started And yeah, units just are not robots. They act humanly, so they try to get cover, they dive down, they crouch, and they try to maneuver into the trees. So, but even so, only 7 minutes passed with all this maneuvering and this first firing, okay? So that's pretty much it, and I think we will continue in the next video. So far, I don't think there's any doubts. If I did anything wrong, just comment. So far, so good. I think the Germans have a good option here. I'm doing different from what I do a lot of times. I think I played this scenario in the last weeks like 40 times. This one, mission 2 and mission 3. Actually, mission 4 as well, because of all the mortar rules and everything. So, and I always did different aspects of the German attack. This time I'm going to try something different. The right wing attack never worked so well. Maybe it was the dice rolling, maybe, I don't know. I want it to work at least once properly, even if I have to go all the way from the back and then take the church. Can't win the game without taking the church. That's important. It's kind of a Save Private Ryan final battle situation here. So, cheers. Thanks for watching and have a good day.